How did you know this solving the data lineage or data quality problem is not just a small feature or like Chrome plugin? How do you know it could be a full service company would buy?
Yeah, great question. So I think there were a couple of things that happened at the same time. First of all, data became really important. And I think that's even more true today, right? If you look at the rise of Snowflake, Databricks, Redshift, rumored to be the fastest growing AWS service, BigQuery, each of these companies has between $1 billion and $2 billion of revenue. That means that lots of people are making a ton of investments in their data infrastructure. On top of that, think about the rise of the data science as a role, the rise of the data engineer, the analytics engineer, the data product manager, a totally new title, which I'm a huge fan of, by the way. Like all these different professionals that have emerged as data. And by the way, if you also look at this, even in like the most, recent sort of macro environment that we're in, companies are still incredibly bullish on data. Data is continuing to be at the center of operations for companies. And of course, with that comes more data sources, more data volume, more people working with data. The second thing is, I was speaking with hundreds of data leaders and asking them, what's keeping you up at night? And people kept on referring to this problem again and again, saying things like, we can't actually trust the data. And then we lose credibility as a data team when the data is wrong. Or, when my team spends 4 out of 5 days in the week actually firefighting data issues, we can't get anything done. Or, we are trying to democratize data in our company and have each function use data, but we can't do that because the data is wrong and nobody can trust the data. That's the most common thing that I kept hearing from people. And it came up as one of their top 3 problems. People would tell me, I'm waking up sweating at night because I'm not sure if the data that I'm presenting tomorrow is right or not, right? There's strong emotions related to that. Equifax made it public a couple of months ago that actually they assigned millions of wrong credit scores because of bad data. And so that's, millions of users and real people can't get a loan or a mortgage or whatever it is because of bad data. How terrible is that, right? Or on the business front, Unity, for example, it's a gaming company. They had one problem with actually their advertising data that was wrong that cost them $100 million.
Oh, wow.
One data problem. Think about all the things that are not reported, right? These are things that don't always make it to the public, but everyone knows about it and every company has this issue. And so I think the thing that really helped me understand was there was no industry that was spared, right? Financial services, media, retail, whoever's using data has this problem. And there's no size of company. So, small organizations that have 5, 10 people on their data team up until Netflix and Meta and other companies who have hundreds of thousands of people and thousands of data people working on these problems. That really sort of, gave me the conviction that this is a problem that's real for people today and it's going to get worse. And the implications are severe on society and on business.
What are some other common issues with data quality?
Great question. So actually, when we first started the company, the number one thing people told us was hey, my data is a snowflake. My data is different than your data. So when my data is wrong, it's very different than when your data is wrong. And I think that's right? Every company uses data differently, in aggregates, different kinds of data. But here's the thing, right? We kept on going back to corollaries from software engineering and software observability and software reliability. And even for engineering, there's a framework or a certain set of metrics that capture and give, capture the health of your systems and give engineering teams, specifically SRE teams, site reliability engineers, the information they need to make sure that applications, infrastructure, software is reliable and accurate. We said, why can't we create the same framework for data teams, right? So understanding what are the common patterns for how data is wrong. And so we actually went to hundreds of people that we spoke with and we asked them, tell me about all the times that the data is wrong. What happened? And there were actually patterns emerging from that. So I'll give you sort of a couple examples and I'll explain how we codified them into one framework. But the most common example that we heard was the data was late and we didn't know about it. So we expected the data to come in at 8 a.m. every day and it just didn't arrive. And I didn't get notified about it. And it's 11 a.m. and the team wants to use the data and they can't. Another example, we have the data, but it's all null values. There's nothing there. Right? And I didn't know about it. Happens all the time. Or another example, someone upstream made a schema change. Like, for example, they changed the type of field, or, maybe they actually like deleted a table and they didn't know that someone downstream actually is relying on that field. These are the examples that come up again and again and again, right? And in all of these instances, it's involving like multiple people making changes and other people not being aware of it. And, we actually use that to codify what we call the 5 pillars of data observability. So the first is freshness. And so freshness is all about making sure that the data that you have is actually up to date. So if, a particular table needs to get updated 3 times a day, every single day, but it hasn't been updated at all today, you probably want to know about that. The second pillar is volume. And so volume of the data, pretty straightforward, basically understanding whether it's like number of rows or size of the file, help you understand whether it's actually the volume of data that you expect. Maybe you can guess the third pillar, which is schema changes. Schema changes are the culprit of many issues with data downtime.
Yeah.
Anything that's changed to the organization of the data, like a table deleted, a field changed in type. The fourth pillar is what we call quality. And that's really referring to like field level itself. So like a particular example would be, if you have customer IDs and you suddenly have like a negative customer ID, like a negative value, probably doesn't make sense.
Right.
Or for example, if you're looking, at fields that are between the ranges of 2 and 5, and suddenly, you get the number 2,000, right? Then obviously, like, doesn't make sense. Like, you can't have a credit score with 2,000. And then the fifth pillar is lineage. And when I say lineage, I mean an automated understanding of the connections between data assets. And those could be tables or fields, and those have to be cross-system. So it's not just within your data warehouse, but it's between, let's say, your data warehouse and your BI solution, for example. So it's basically a map of how are all the different tables related to each other and how are those related to their reports. And what that really what this pillar helps is bring the whole story together. The interesting thing about data downtime or data issues is that when it happens, like everything goes wrong together, right? Or oftentimes there's multiple things that are contributing to a problem. So for example, someone might have made a schema change upstream, which caused a particular table downstream that's related to it to have a freshness problem, which might have a volume problem in a downstream table, which might actually have like an incorrect value in a report downstream. And so lineage helps you piece all that together and understand what are the different breaking points along the way.
Looking back at your journey, what are some mistakes you have made in your career?
There's been so many mistakes. It's funny, I think maybe very early when we just started in Monte Carlo, I spoke to hundreds of data folks. I mentioned this and like asked what are the top issues and kind of came up with, the framework for how we want to build a solution for this and what it means. And then, I partnered with my co-founder, Lior, and I was like, okay, Lior, well, why don't you go build a solution and let me know when you're done. And Lior was like, no way. We need to work hand in hand with a real customer.
Yeah.
And we have to go find a customer that has a real problem right now. And we're going to solve that problem. We're not building anything, in the dark alone. We are building hand in hand with customers. And I think that set the DNA for the company. And every single thing that we build with a customer. We're never going to go sit some room, think about the problem, and then come talk to you. It's going to be with a real customer that we can point to and a real pain point.